Welcome to They Don't Tell. What is it exactly that they don't tell? Well, we're going to talk about a topic that you don't hear very much about, and that's child sexual abuse. We're here to shed some light on an area that too often carries so much shame, silence, and secrecy. Have you ever heard that saying, what goes on in this house stays in this house? Well, we're not going to let that happen. What we say is hold your head up high. You have nothing to be ashamed of. So come on and join in the conversation with us right here on Worship Radio Detroit. Hello, how are you today? Welcome to They Don't Tell. We're here today to talk about a topic that you don't hear in the public very often, and that's child sexual abuse. My name is Lisa R. Gray, and I am an author. I wrote a book about the topic. It's called They Don't Tell, Child Sexual Abuse from a Mother's Perspective, and that's because I am a mother. That's because I found out a very difficult truth, and that was that my daughter, my only daughter, was sexually abused by her stepfather. We're here today to talk about a topic that really the Lord has placed on our heart, and it's time to expose some things, to talk about a topic that is difficult for some. However, He's given me a grace to discuss it. We went through that very trying time. We went through that with the help of our Lord, Savior, Jesus Christ, and because we were able to go through that, and because my daughter is doing well, she was on our program. Please feel free to look at any of the other programs. We're here just to talk about it. We want to help somebody else. We want somebody else to do the same thing that we did. And what we did, we went to our Father, we went to the Lord, and we held our head up high because we had nothing to be ashamed of. We had no shame. There was no reason for us to walk around. There was no reason for my daughter to walk around with shame. There was no reason because she didn't do anything wrong, because she never asked anyone to touch her. You see, at the time that I married her stepfather, she was in the 3rd grade, so she was about 8 years old, and he immediately began molesting my child. Child sexual abuse is, it's an ugly topic. However, I'm finding out more and more that not only is it an ugly topic, but it's the elephant in the room. There's an elephant in the room because it's so pervasive. It's happening so often. So many people that I've talked to have told me their stories until it's just been mind-boggling. The number of people that have had to deal with child sexual abuse is just crazy. And we don't talk about it. I don't know if we want to pretend that it's not happening, which we know that's not the case. Or is it because of the shame? Because the enemy has shut us up and shut our mouths down. Well, we can't do that. And I say to you, if that's your case, if that's your story, open your mouth, hold your head up high. You don't have anything to be ashamed of. You didn't do anything. You never invited someone to come and violate you. And I'm saying to you that that's exactly what took place. It was a violation. It was a violation of the very personhood that you are, whether you were a boy or a girl. So many of the statistics right now are showing that it's 1 in 4 for the girls, and 1 in 6 for our boys. And how many don't tell? How many have kept that to themselves, have been in their own closet, their own silo, where they just kept it to themselves? They never told anyone. They've walked around with a burden on their shoulders that was never theirs to bear. And I have to say, I don't know if we as a community have to take some of the blame for that. And I'm saying that because they walk around with shame. If they tell somebody, what's the response going to be? What kind of response did they get? How many people have I talked to that said they did tell and nothing was done? Or they did tell and no one believed them? Or they did tell and they flipped the script. It became their problem. Well, what were you wearing? Well, what were you doing? Well, how are we doing that to our children? We, as the church of all people, we have to stand up for the fatherless. We have to defend them. But so often we've not done that. I have to tell you that as I wrote this book, it's called They Don't Tell, Child Abuse from a Mother's Perspective. And the Lord has put us on a journey just to talk about it, to let people know that it is happening. just have to put it into the public forum. We're going to have to talk about it more and more, and that's why we have this program. Because we are not walking around as if nothing happened. We don't want to pretend it didn't happen. And so many times people want to minimize it. We're not here to minimize it. We're not here to discount it. We're not here to deny it. And all that's been going on. So we're here to open up a discussion with you, with your family, with your church community, with your girlfriends, with your guy friends, to talk about, yeah, this happened to me as well. As I've begun to talk about this topic, and we do a lot of information, what you see in front of you is something else that we do. We inform people that molesters don't molest everybody. They don't molest every child. They pick and choose. And as we've started putting some graphics up and we've started doing some things on Facebook, we've done some things on YouTube, people have come to us and they're starting to talk about some things that they haven't shared with other people. And it's just mind-boggling the number of people that are walking around with this secret. They're walking around as if they're used goods. They're walking around as if they're damaged. They're walking around and they no longer have their own self-value and their self-worth. They've been traumatized. They have been traumatized. And as a child, what happens with children is when somebody does something to them, they look and say, well, what did I do? Why did I deserve that? What did I do to make that person do this to me? When you've done nothing. You were a child. You were innocent. And you know what? You were a target. You know, sometimes we're finding that predators actually target, they profile who's going to be their next victim, just like a bank robber does. You know how a bank robber will case the joint? They'll take a look around and see when's the appropriate time, when can I do this, who's going to be there. Well, we're finding that the molesters are doing some of the same thing. So I want you to know, if this is your story, if you have been molested, it is not your fault. You were profiled. You were targeted. The enemy came after you because they wanted to destroy your purpose. The enemy came after you to destroy your destiny. Wanted to take you down so that you didn't fulfill the things that the Lord has for you. But I say to you, hold your head up high. You do exactly what the Lord has put in your heart to do. You can succeed in anything and everything. And I say to you, take this and use it for your good. Everything that the enemy wants to use against you, you can take it and you can turn it around. You flip the script on him and you take it and use it for your good. Tell somebody about it. Don't walk around as if it never happened. You know, I've talked to some people who say, well, it's in the past, so I just want to leave it in the past. Maybe that would be okay if it really was in the past. But what we're seeing is that not only is in the past, but is in your everyday. Because people are acting out of their hurt. They're acting out of their pain. They're acting out of shame. Different people do different things to medicate themselves. We know that some people will drink. That's how they medicate. Some people will take drugs. They're self-medicating. Some people eat. Some people refrain from eating. Some people start doing self-cutting. Some people start gambling. Some people shop. People find different ways to medicate, to numb the pain that's inside. And what we're finding out, especially in the counseling field, which is I am a licensed counselor, we find that people they'll find a way. They act out. When we're talking about teenagers, they get angry, they get mad, and they rebel. And a lot of times it's from nothing other than the fact that they've been sexually molested. They've never told anybody. You know, our children will walk around with the weight of the world on their shoulders as if it's their responsibility to hold the family together. It's their responsibility to hold up the family name. You know, until we start peeling back some layers and telling the truth about what's going on, the family doesn't have a name. Are we ready to sacrifice our children, because that's what we're doing? Are we ready to sacrifice our children because we're concerned about the family name? Are you ready to sacrifice your child? You ready to offer your child up in order to keep it hush-hush because we don't want anybody to know that this is what's going on? How many of us grew up in a house where you heard what goes on in this house stays in this house? I'm saying to you that the Lord is coming after that. He's ready to expose what needs to be exposed. And there's some things that are going on in our homes that need to be exposed. We cannot continue to let this happen generation after generation after generation. I've talked to people who it's known that the girls in the family are going to be molested. It's just known. What makes that okay? What makes it all right to touch another child, to touch a child? What makes it okay that everybody in the family knows it and they just deal with it? We're going to have to expose some things. You know what? We're going to have to take off the mask and pretend that everything's okay when it's not. It is not okay. The Lord is not happy with that. It's not, unfortunately, what we're finding, molesters have some people who enable them to molest. They enable the molester to continue to the next person, to the next child, to the next, because they keep their mouths quiet and they don't talk about it. But I'm saying to you that if you want to stop this, if you want to see a generation that's no longer molested, that's no longer hurt, that's no longer walking around with shame and guilt that's never theirs, then you might have to speak up. It may mean that you're going to have to do something that's difficult, and that's to speak up about what's going on and put a stop to it. Who's going to draw a line in the sand? There was a story in the Bible and it said, who's going to be on the Lord's side? Who's going to be on the Lord's side? Well, the way that we're going to be on the Lord's side is to speak up for our children in the family, for our children in the neighborhood, for our children in the community. Who's going to be on the Lord's side? You're going to have to make some decisions. You're going to have to make some decisions about what you're going to do. Are you going to continue to not talk about what's going on when it may have been you? And now that you're no longer in that situation, it happens to the next child in the family. It happens to the next person that's brought around the family. Somebody's going to have to speak up for our children, and why not you? Why not me? Who's going to be on the Lord's side? The Lord wants us to defend the fatherless, the widow. We're required to do this as Christians, but I have to tell you that in the church, we pretend that it doesn't happen. In the church, we're pretending that, that happens in the Catholic Church. Well, it's not just in the Catholic Church. I'm here to tell you. My ex-husband was a minister of music at the church. And you know what? He did not miss a Sunday. He was there every Sunday, playing on the piano. He was there every Sunday. And every opportunity he had, he was molesting my daughter. It is not just in the Catholic Church. It is in the Protestant church. It's in the charismatic church. It's in the church. It's in the Church of God in Christ. It's in the church. It's in the pews. It's everywhere. And we've not talked about it, and it continues to perpetuate. Well, somebody's going to have to take the covers off of this. Somebody's going to have to speak up and say it's not all right. When's the last time you heard someone talk about molestation, even in the church, or talk about sex? We are going to have to do it. We're going to have to talk to our children. We have to talk to our grandchildren. My daughter was here when I interviewed her, and she said that was one of the things that I didn't have a discussion with her. She said it was just something that was expected. Well, we have to do better than that. I want you to learn from my mistakes. Don't just expect it, even though there's an expectation. Talk to your children. Has Uncle so-and-so molested you? Has Uncle so-and-so touched you? Is anybody touching you? Is anybody touching you? Has anybody touched you? If so, you can tell me. You can tell me. I want you to tell me, because I don't want that to happen to you, because I love you. We're going to have to talk to our children. We have to talk to our grandchildren. We're going to have to talk to our nieces and our nephews. As a minister in the church, the number of people that talk about being molested is crazy. How does this happen? Well, part of the reason it happens is because there's not a discussion being had. So the Lord did put it on my heart to write this book about what happened with myself and my daughter. And it was very difficult. I'm not saying that's not even the point. I'm not saying it's not difficult. I'm not saying that sometimes it was very hard. Sometimes you feel like you're by yourself. But you know what? I'd rather have walked the journey that we walked, and now my daughter is walking in freedom. Now she's 26 years old, and she's walking in freedom. Why is she walking in freedom? Because she did the work. She did the hard work. She did the prayers. She had the support of the family. And I have to tell you that if you are someone that has been molested, or you know somebody that's being molested, they need your support. Yes, they do. They need your support. The research shows that those who are supported do so much better than those who are not supported. How many of our children are on the street? How many of our children are walking in the red light district because they just feel like nobody cared about them anyway? How many of our children are walking around and they're alcoholics or they're drug addicts? They're cutting themselves. They've been traumatized. And nobody really wanted to see what the issue was. They've been rebellious. They do some, look, I'm not saying they're not doing crazy things, because Lord knows they do. They become promiscuous. My daughter said the same thing. She started drinking. All these things are happening, but what is up under it? That's what we want to get to. What's the underlying issue? And too many times we don't know what the underlying issue is. But I'm saying that it's time for us to talk about it. Let's put this out in the open. Let's talk about it in the church. Let's talk about it in our homes. Let's talk about it wherever we are. I want to share some stories that people have shared with me. Some of the people that have talked about how horrifying it was even to remember. I've been talking with some people lately, and I'm talking about women who are in their 40s and 50s that are starting to remember some things that happened to them when they were younger, how they had been touched. And they had blocked it out of their minds, but it's starting to come back to them. And, you know, it's pretty horrifying when it starts to come back to you. I have to say it's been a journey for these women that I've talked to. It's been quite a journey. But they still want to go. They want to walk that walk. They want the freedom. And you know what? They deserve it. They deserve to be free of the nightmares. Many people have night terrors. They have this foreboding that just walks around with them, like they're walking around with a dark cloud and not knowing why or what's going on. Well, the enemy is looking for any way he can to destroy your life. We know that. Whatever he can attach himself to and just run rapid over your life, just roughshod, just tear you down anyway. And so many of our women, so many of our young men have let that happen. But I'm saying this was never your fault. You are never the reason that this happened. And I'm saying to you that you can have freedom. You can have healing. You can be supported. I don't care if it happened to you 5 days ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago. If you are still dealing with that, then we need to talk about it. I want you to reach out to us. One of the reasons that we're doing this program is even so we can have some discussions. Our telephone number here at Worship Radio Detroit is 313-216-0674. We've been talking to some people that are willing to share their story. If that's you, you can reach out to us on Facebook. You can also reach us on Twitter. You can reach us on, what else do we have? Periscope. We want to talk to you if you're ready to share your story so that you can help somebody else. And I think that's so important. When you have gone through something as horrendous, when you've gone through something as horrific as child sexual abuse, and you've come out on the other side, then I think you're going to want to share it with someone else. And that's what we're here for. We want you to share with other people. And I want to go over a couple of things as well. I was reading this book, and it's called Tear Down This Wall of Silence. And it's by a man, it's by a pastor. His name is Dale Ingram. It's called Tear Down This Wall of Silence. And he was writing about the silence in the church, how we in the church have not talked about it, how we in the church, he's a pastor. And he dedicated this book to his wife because his wife had been sexually abused by her father, who was a pastor. I was able to meet them. We were able to share some things and talk about exactly what's going on, or in this case, what was not going on in the church. And there are a couple of things that he wrote in there in that book that I really wanted to share with you. And here's one of them. He said that Christians too often deny, disassociate, or diminish this crime. We keep finding that out over and over again. We're in denial. Well, it didn't happen because he was a good guy. And that was what my daughter said. Well, her stepfather was a good guy. And we had to go back and really take that apart. What do you mean he was a good guy? Because how many good guys do you know that are going around molesting their stepdaughters in this case? How many good guys do you know are asking their daughters to touch them and that are touching their private parts? How many good guys do you know that do that? So how are we going to deny this? Because your experience with this person was good. And I have to tell you that if that was not the case, I never would have married the man. He obviously had some good qualities. I would not have married him. However, he had another persona. Okay? There was another persona that I was not aware of. There was another person. There was another person that was hiding behind, and that person would come out whenever he was around my daughter by herself. One of the things that he used to do was a lot of tickling. And as we read and as we find out more information, we talk to other molesters, that's one of their prime things that they do. They do a lot of tickling and wrestling. And you know what? They're molesting your child right in front of you. You're in the same room where they're tickling and they're wrestling, and it looks like it's all just fun. And it's not. They have their own agenda. So what is this about denying, disassociating, and diminishing? For some reason, we in the church believe that if we talked about this, that it's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt the foundation of the church. Well, didn't the Lord come to bring truth? Why would we not be on the side of someone who has been molested, who's been traumatized? Why are we not just seeing what we can do? But instead, too often, they're shunned. Too often, the people who are molested have to find another church home. Why? Because we've allowed the same person to continue to flaunt themselves in front of the child, in front of their family. And I don't know how that, we've just turned justice upside down. We've turned it around. So we want the molester to go ahead and to continue because that'll look good for the church. That'll look good. We don't, really? Are we really going to do that? Are we offering up our children on the altar of we want to look good? I find that happening over and over again. And I really think the Lord's coming after that. I really think the Lord's coming after that. I really think that this is a season where he's really he's going to expose some things, and some things need to be exposed. I thank God for exposure. You know, whether it's to the good or to the bad, because some things need to be exposed because they need to be stopped. Some things need to be exposed because they've been going on behind the scenes, and too often we have allowed it. So, yeah, Lord's coming after that. He's going to expose some things, but he's also going to expose some things that are good. And I tell you that this program, in order to interview people who are ready to tell their story, God wants to expose that. And that's a good exposure. God does want to expose. If you're ready to tell your story, if you're ready to share, if you're no longer hiding, if you're one of those people who I say no more shame, secrecy, or silence, reach out to us. Again, my name is Lisa R. Gray. You can reach out to us on Facebook. The book is They Don't Tell, and our Facebook page is also called They Don't Tell. Reach out to us if you're ready to tell your story. We have a segment just for you so that you can Have some freedom so that you can be delivered, so that you're no longer walking around as if you did something, as if you're damaged goods. How can you be damaged goods when you were a child? You know, the other thing that we work with is sex trafficking. Those are our two areas that we work with on our nonprofit. And the number of people that are in sex trafficking that were molested is absolutely crazy. We're finding over and over again that once you have been victimized, and that's what it is, once you've been targeted, the devil wants to continue to use and abuse you. How many people have we talked to that they weren't just molested one time or by one perpetrator, but it was by the father, then it was by the brother, then it was by the uncle, then it was a boyfriend, where it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And they finally have given up on themselves. That's why we're here. Because it's a lie. And we're here to expose every lie that the enemy set up. I don't care if that's a lie that you've even told yourself. How many of us have vowed and said, okay, this will never happen to me again? I'm saying to you that what happened to you was never your fault. And if no one ever apologized to you, let me apologize. If the church didn't treat you right, let me apologize on behalf of the church, on behalf of our Lord and Savior. It was so wrong how you were treated, how you were never validated, where no one ever took the time to say, oh, this is wrong and this never should have happened to you. Let me be the first. If you were not protected, let me be the first as a mother to apologize that I didn't see your hurt, that I didn't see the trauma, that I didn't see what was going on with you. Maybe I spoke harsh to you. Maybe your mother was speaking harsh to you. And all the time you were hurting on the inside. I say to you, I'm sorry. Please accept my apology. I wish I could go back and change things, and I would just for you. Why? Because you're that important. Because it makes a difference. I don't care if this happened to you 5 years ago or 50 years ago. It was never right. It was never right. One of the things that we have to do this program is so that we can let other people know we didn't do everything right. We didn't see those things we didn't pick up on the clues that were being left. We didn't see the deception. But you know what? We see it now. Our eyes are open now. The blinders are off now, and we're coming after that with everything that's in us. We're coming after that because there's still too many people walking around with hurt. We're coming after it because there's still too many of you that are walking around limping. You're actually limping. You're not running with everything that God has given you, and God has given you life, and life more abundantly, and you're no longer living it. You've made the decision that, well, at least they're going to pay for it now. Huh? Who do you know that grows up and says, when I grow up, I want to swing on a pole? When I grow up, I want to service 20 men a day. When I grow up, I want to walk around with high heels and nothing on and show my body. Do you know anybody like that? That's their goal in life? No. They've had circumstances. Okay? We've had circumstances in our life. And we've all had circumstances. But I'm here to say we're going to talk about child sexual abuse. We're here to talk about the spirit of perversion that we're allowing to happen. We're here to talk about the pornography that has become so mainstream until we don't even talk about it in the church anymore. Well, I'm here to tell you that pornography is wrong. It's wrong for the person that's behind the camera. It's wrong for the person that's in front of the camera. That has never been God's intention for your life. Never been, never, never. Sex was created for inside the marriage, and it's good, and it's very good, and it's a God thing. It wasn't meant for a boy and a girl to have a hookup. It wasn't meant for couples to go swinging. It was meant the way God had created it. And the enemy is wreaking havoc with sex as if that's his domain. It's not. God created it, and it's good. And it's good for its purpose. But perversion has come into the church. The number of boys that we run into, especially our young boys, they've been introduced to pornography, and now they're hooked. They are hooked. that the spirit of perversion has come in and has taken them by the nose and is just dragging them around. We've got to come after that. The young people that have been abused by someone that's just older than them, not a father, not a stepfather, but just somebody older, it's like 30%. When we talk about molestation, sometimes we're talking about somebody in the family, just an older brother. It's happening. Oh, yeah, it happens inside the family. I've talked to some people that not only was their father or their stepfather molesting them, but they had an older brother that was molesting them, or a babysitter, or an older cousin. Generation after generation, who's gonna stand up for the children? Who's going to stop it? That's why you're listening. That's why you're watching. That's what we're here for. We're here to put a stop to it and say, yeah, I know this has been going on, but no more. Somebody's going to have to draw a line in the sand and say, not another further. No more. We have to stop this. And you know what? We have the capability to do just that. We can stop it. But we can't stop it if we're not going to be willing to have some difficult days. You know, you're going to be talked about. Oh, there is backlash. Trust me, there's backlash when you speak up. Yeah, there's backlash, but that doesn't matter. You know, when I made the decision that we were going to go to the authorities and report what had happened to my daughter, we received some backlash, but I didn't care. What is backlash? I wanted to fight for my daughter's future, and I want you to fight for your future. Backlash is just a part of life. It's okay. I'm going to deal with the backlash, and the Lord is going to cover it. You know, the Lord, he said, the vengeance is mine. I will repay. That was not my concern. I could care less about what people were saying, and I could really care less about what they thought. Made absolutely no difference, because you know why? You weren't my child's mother. You weren't my child's father. You were not in the place that she was, dealing with what she was dealing with. And I knew that she had a future. I knew that God had a destiny for my child. And I knew that the devil wanted to destroy it. Wasn't going to have it. I got mad. Righteous indignation, I had it. And I want you to have it. I want you to have it for your future, for your daughter, for your sister. You know, I've been talking to some young men lately, and they were telling me about their sisters that were molested. They never knew. We're talking about grown men that are just finding out now that their sisters were molested, and they feel so helpless. And you know what? You didn't know. I know there was a time when we were going to counseling with my daughter, and I remember saying to Nick, I was like, "Don't you want to yell at me and shout?" And I wanted her to just give it to me. And she just looked at me and said, "Mom, you didn't know. You didn't know." So if that's the case for you, if you're finding out that one of your loved ones was abused, because now they're talking about it, but you didn't know it at the time, remember, first of all, you were a child as well. Don't take on any guilt. Don't take on any shame. That was never yours. It's not yours. We have to place the blame where the blame lies, and that's with the person that succumbed to the enemy, that took that temptation into their heart. You know, so much of what we're watching on television, what we're hearing on radio is making it all okay. The enemy has this program right now to make it all just be mainline, and it's not. Somebody's going to have to speak against it. Somebody's going to have to hold the line. Somebody's going to have to say, this is not right and this is perverted. I said it. It's perverted. Somebody's going to have to say, this is perverted. This is all twisted up. This is not right, and it's not okay. It's not okay for our children to go sleeping around with every new boyfriend that they get. It's not okay for our sons to go around sleeping with every person that'll open up. It's not okay. It is not okay. Somebody's going to have to draw a line. And you know who that somebody is? It's whoever's looking in the mirror. That somebody is you. That somebody is me. We're going to have to change our communities to where it's okay to tell somebody touched me. And I know one of the things that I did not understand as a mother. I didn't understand why my daughter didn't tell me, because I loved my baby. I didn't understand it. Well, I'm understanding a little bit better now as I've talked to more and more people who have done the same thing they haven't told, as they've shared their stories with me. So many times our children feel like they are caught between a rock and a hard place. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. First of all, they're living with their perpetrator, and they don't want to hurt their mother. And I find that that's what happened with my daughter. What's going to happen to the family? They're trying to figure out life as if everything has been heaped on their shoulders, and that's so wrong. We're going to have some discussions with our children, with our boys. Over 5% of the people who are sexually molested now are boys. Why? Because the spirit of perversion is running rampant. We have associations of men who target our boys. That won't have nothing to do with a girl. That won't have nothing to do with a woman. They want a boy. They target our boys. Pedophiles in our communities. Pedophiles amongst us. Pedophiles in our community. Pedophiles in our homes. Are we just going to allow that to continue to happen over and over again? I say no. Are we going to let it happen in the church? So if you're going to a church and somebody in that church molested your child, what do you do? How do you handle it? Who do you tell? Who do you talk to? Are you going to bring reproach on the church? How can you bring reproach on the church when we're talking about an innocent child being touched? How can that be a reproach on the church? It can't be. There is no way that can be. We're worried about a reputation. What reputation? We're talking about a child that has been violated. We're talking about a child who can be hurt for the rest of their life if there's not some intervention, if there's not some deliverance, if there's not some validation, if there's not some acknowledgement of what happened. You know, we and leadership have to talk about this. We who are in leadership have to say, oh no, we will not allow this to happen. We who are in leadership know of some people who have molested. And because we're the church and because we are so loving, we've allowed other people to be molested as well. Well, we're going to have to draw a line in the sand. We're going to have to make a difference between the profane and the clean. We have to make a difference. That's why God called the church. That's what we did. You know, even when Christ went into the temple, he overturned all the money changers. He said this should not be happening in the church. He came in to bring some destruction to some things that should not be taking place. And there's some things taking place in the church. Some of us are walking around with a pastor who has a spirit of perversion, who has a lust demon, who's walking around with a lustful eye, looking for their next conquest in the pews. So you don't expect, if you're in that type of a church, don't expect that anything's going to be said about child sexual abuse. Don't think that anything's going to be said about anything that's controversial, because they're dealing with them themselves. We have deacons walking around with lust, just a lustful eye, and nobody's saying nothing about it. Nobody's getting deliverance. We're just walking around as if it's okay. It's not okay. We have ministers of music who are perverted in the church. God's coming after that. I'm telling you, beyond a shadow of doubt, God's coming after it. It's a season of exposure. He's exposing it. It's time for us to stand up and be the church. It's time for us to stand up and tell somebody. It's time for us to stand up and do something. We're going to have to draw a line in the sand. Whose side are you going to be on? You're either going to be on the Lord's side or not. We cannot continue to pretend to diminish it, to deny it, and to act like it's not happening. I'm saying to you, no more shame, no more secrecy, and no more silence. You're going to have to tell somebody about what took place with you. Why? Because you don't want it to happen to somebody else. As long as we continue to let it be a secret, as long as we continue to let it be the that great big the elephant that nobody's talking about. We just walking around it. We're walking on eggshells. It continues to happen. We have to do something. We have to do the difficult things. We have to do the difficult work. And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you might walk along. Sometimes you might have some backlash. But you know what? We're going to have to, there was a little while ago, I'm going to say it's probably about 10 years ago, people used to walk around with a headband, with an armband that said WWJD. You remember that? WWJD. What would Jesus do? Would Jesus just allow this to continue to happen and nobody say anything? Would Jesus allow the next child to be molested? Would Jesus just keep silent because we don't want to bring any reproach on the church? I don't think so. That's not the God that I serve. The God that I serve is about exposing things that are not right. Sometimes we've set up these structures and we've allowed it to happen and happen and happen. Well, he's coming after it. We have to tear it down. We have to tear down the structures and the support systems. We have to tear down the enablers, so people who enable it to happen over and over. We know about, we know about the Catholic Church. How they did was do a chessboard and they'd move them around to the next parish. They move them around. They were not doing anything about it. They're just moving them around. And these people continue to perpetuate against, violate these children. And it's not right. But what about the Protestant church? What's going on in the Protestant church? We know that the pastor has a lust, that he's lustful, that he's sleeping around everywhere he can. We know that the deacons are doing the same. We know that the deacons are beating on their wife. We know it. And we're doing nothing about it. Nobody's being sat down. Nothing's being changed. We know what's going on with the minister of music. We know what they're doing. They're not hiding it. They're saying, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And you know what we're doing? You know what we're doing? We're taking it. We said, well, just keep it down on the down low. Really? Do we really want things down the down low? Do we really want our boys to be around those people who are on the down low? Child sexual abuse is just something that's been rampant. It's not something new. And I remember I wrote in the book that I was listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes some years ago. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, he talks about molestation a lot. I remember thinking that. I was like, wow, I know it happens, but do it really happen that much? Do it really happen that much? I mean, do we have to keep talking about it? That was me. The same time I was saying that my daughter was being molested in my home. So I'm here to tell you, yes, it happens just that much. Yes, we're going to continue to talk about it. Yes, it's happening. It's happening in our homes. It's happening in our churches. It's happening in our schools. It's the coach. It's the babysitter. It's the boy next door. Yes, it is happening, and we're going to have to protect our children. Defend the fatherless. There's going to have to be some accountability. Now, I have to talk about, for a quick minute, forgiveness. Do we forgive? Absolutely. Do we forgive? Yes, we do. And you know what we do? We do it quickly. We forgive quickly. But what does that have to do with being accountable for your actions? We forgive. Lord knows that I've forgiven. My daughter has forgiven. My family has forgiven. We forgave the person who molested my daughter, my ex-husband who molested my daughter. We forgive. And not only did we have to forgive him, but we had to forgive his crowd. Because sometimes molesters will have a crowd around them, a crowd that supports them. But you know what? We had to forgive even the crowd. Why? Because we're going to do what Christ said. We did not want to walk around with a hard heart. However, and this is what gets mixed up in the church, there still has to be justice. There still has to be accountability. I can forgive you and still hold you accountable for what you did, and that's exactly what we did. We went to court. We took it to the authorities. We let it be known, this is what happened to my daughter. We went to court. We went to trial. We had to testify. We went through a year of sheer hell with the crowd, with all those that were crowding around and all the naysayers. You know, all those people that do the whispering. You know they whisper. Did that matter? Absolutely not. See, you could whisper from here until the cows came home. But what had happened to my daughter was going to be told. It was going to get out. I did not want another child because this person was around children all the time. I did not want another child molested. See, that became my responsibility as a mother, as someone who knew the truth. It became my responsibility to let it be known so that that didn't happen to anyone else. I cannot tell you how many people have come to me after the fact and told me their stories about this man. I never would have married this man. But you know what? We cannot sit on what we know. We cannot sit in silence. We cannot sit on it and say, oh, really? They're going to marry who? And knowing that this person has a spirit of perversion. I did not see it. I did not know it at the time. But boy, have my eyes been opened now. My daughter is so funny. She can spot somebody in a heartbeat because she's been exposed to that. We are going to have to hold people accountable for what they do. In the church, we're going to have to hold them accountable. We cannot so immediately embrace somebody and say, oh, okay, it's okay. No. There has to be accountability. We're going to have to hold people accountable for what they've done to the least of us. We're going to have to hold people accountable for what they've done, for what they're doing. Because if we don't, if we fail to act, if we diminish it, if we pretend that it's not happening, what's going to happen? We'll have another generation of children that are abused and molested. We'll have another generation of children that'll say, Daddy touched me. Daddy was touching me. We'll have another generation of children walking around, of teenagers mad, angry, and hurt. We'll have another generation of women walking around with no self-worth, no self-esteem. We'll have another generation of suicide. We'll have another generation of cutting. We'll have another generation of alcoholism, another generation of, I'm thinking about the drug addicts. We'll have another generation of women walking around selling their bodies because they felt like they had no self-worth. Because we haven't talked about it. That's why. Because we're pretending that it hasn't happened. Because we're hiding behind it. Because we're minimizing it. Because we're saying that it's the child's fault. Well, what did you have on when you were around Uncle Johnny? Huh? What did I have on? You're walking around with an adult with a lustful eye, and you know we have them. We all have them in our family. You got somebody with a lustful eye. You better watch out. You're gonna have to watch out for your child. Watch out for your nephew. I said nephew, because our boys are being molested too. Watch out for your nieces. You're gonna have to watch. Well, what do you mean? You why are you in the bathroom with? Huh? What are you doing? We are going to have to watch out because there's a devil that wants our children, that wants their future, that wants their lives, that wants them. And I'm saying to you, we're going to have to watch out. I'm saying to you that we're going to have to expose that enemy. We're going to have to come after him with everything we got. We're going to have to tear down the wall of silence. That's what Dale Ingram said in his book. Tear down the wall of silence in the church. His wife's father was a pastor and had been molesting who knows how many. Actually, he said he really didn't remember all the people that he molested in the church. In the church. There was a movie, Bianca, Who Did This to You? It's a molestation in the church. The Lord is ready to expose this, but you know what? He needs you to come out from among them. He needs you to come out and say what happened to you. He needs you and he needs me to say this is what's going on, and we'll have no more part of it. We'll have no more part of being ashamed. We'll have no more part of walking around with silence. We've just covered up our mouths and said, shh, shh, shh. No more. No more secrecy. What goes on in this house stays in this house. What does that mean? I mean, tell me, what does that mean? Because you're worried about a reputation? Really? So you're ready to offer up your children on the altar of your reputation. You're ready to offer up your children on the reputation of, well, we have a good family name. No, you have a false family name. What you have is a mask. But you know what? You can have a good family name by telling the truth, by exposing the enemy. Expose the lie. Don't perpetuate it. Don't pretend it's not happening, and then it makes it okay because you can walk around with your head held up high, even though you know what just happened to the child. You know what just happened to your foster kids. You know. You've been knowing about it, but you want to walk around with a good reputation. So you're offering up your children. You're offering up your foster children on the altar of your reputation. I told the Lord, I don't have a reputation. All I know is I need you to come in and I need you to heal my child. I need you to expose this enemy. That's all. I didn't care about anybody. It didn't make me any difference about family. I didn't care what family had to say. We were going to expose this, let it be known that this is what's happened and this is what's been happening. And to this day, my ex-husband is in prison for 15 to 40 years. My daughter had a meltdown one day at school, and she told another family member, and guess what? You got it. That family member had been molested by the same person as well. You know, when this is happening, everybody thinks that I'm in my own silo. It's just me. And it's not just you. Molesters do not molest just one child. They target you. They target the family. They look for the next person. They look for somebody who's vulnerable. They definitely look for the fatherless children. And I had divorced my husband. So we were a target. They look for those who are vulnerable, and they abuse that authority. And you know what? If you know about it and you're not saying anything, then you're a part of the problem. I said it, and I mean it. You're a part of the problem. You become an enabler, because there's some people who enable molesters to happen over and over and over. Why? Because you know about it, you don't say anything. So you're going to be an enabler. You're going to offer up the children because you're worried about a reputation. The Lord's coming after that. He's going to expose it. I'm telling you, with everything in me, he's ready to expose it. He's ready to expose the enemy and to expose the lie. And what is the lie? The lie is the mask that you put on that, oh, we're a great family. We're all lovey-dovey. No. You got a family full of molesters, and you're allowing it to happen. You got a family full of kids who have been abused, and you're allowing it to happen because you've not spoke up. Somebody's going to have to draw a line in the sand and say, not another further. No more. No more offering our children up on the altar of my reputation, on the altar of my family's reputation. I don't care about a family reputation. I'm concerned about a child. And I need to have some other people who feel the same way. I'm no longer concerned about a reputation. What will a reputation get you when it's false? Tear it down. Tear down the structures that allowed it to happen. Tear it down and expose the truth. God is after the truth. And the truth of the matter is, molestation is a problem in the church. And we're going to have to hold people accountable for it. We're going to have to go to the authorities. We're going to have to talk about it. And we're not going to allow our children any longer to suffer in silence. It's a shame. It's an indictment on the church. We're allowing our children to suffer in silence, and nobody is talking about it. How dare we do that to the least among us? How dare we? God is not pleased with that. We can't allow our children just to suffer. I'm here to say, not on my watch. As long as I have breath in my body, I'm going to talk about this issue. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to continue to do some graphics where people are talking. I'm going to continue to talk about it to the rooftop. My child was molested by a grown man, and his enablers knew it. He had a crowd around him. He had people in the community that knew he had been molesting people. My daughter had grown women come up to her and say, he molested me too, and nobody talked about it. We're going to put a stop to it. That's what we're here for, and that's the assignment God's given us. So he's put our feet on a path, and we're going to walk this, and we're walking it with him. No more shame, we say to you. No more secrecy, and no more silence. My name is Lisa R. Gray, and I'm asking you to share this on Facebook. I'm asking you to share it on Twitter. Share it on Periscope. Share this. Let's get the word out. We have a generation of people who have been molested, and they don't know how to handle it. But we're coming after that right now. So I say to you, walk this path with us. Get in touch with us. Contact with us. Let us know if you're ready to share your story. Let us know if it's time for you to come out from behind the cloud of shame that was never yours from the beginning. It was never yours. We so thank you for the opportunity to share with you today. I wanted to, once again, the name of our book you can read is They Don't Tell: Child Abuse from a Mother's Perspective. It is available on Amazon. If you're in the Detroit area, it's available at the DeQuinder Bookstore. You can reach us on our Facebook page. You can reach us at our website, lisargray.com. You can also reach us on our website, Every Step Counts Ministries. And I say to you, hold your head up high, because you have nothing to be ashamed of. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope the information that we shared today was folks, helpful and informative. And if you'd like to know more information about the topic of child sexual abuse, please join us at our website, lisargray.com. And also, if you are interested in sowing into the ministry, you can do so at that same website. You can contact us on our Facebook page, They Don't Tell. Thank you.